same thing? Noticing that same thing? Let me just make sure the judges are all set. Oh, okay. I'm like, I've got 11. All right, we're not starting. Just one second. We're having. Sure, cool.
No worries. Hey Ron, do I need to do anything with the mic?
Nope.
I don't? Cool.
You got it.
Yes, I will scoot around here. Like Lon's original plan.
Probably when you lose, yeah. Probably have to be somewhat proximity.
So you're gonna do it? I will do it. Okay. And we can cards.
If I finish what it's 7 minutes, we're good. That's like the cycle.
That's the track. I need to come in around 6:30. Juan gives me 2 minutes at the end or minute 30. Hey, one's an evil, always an evil. Thanks. What?
If you want to scoot this way, and then we can go behind it. But you always stay in proximity.
Well, no, I can stand here for now, and then I'll move that way. So I have to. We're not using. No, we're not using.
Your team H.
We are team H.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. If my timer is ready in the back, everybody's all set here. Our final one. Again, thank you again so much, everybody, for your time. We hope you enjoyed the competition so far. We have one team left to go, so please help us welcome Team H.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us here today. My name is Nina, and I'm the captain of Team H. And I'm going to stand over here for the clicker to work. And with me is my friends Juan from Mexico City, Jet from Virginia, and Pablo from Santiago. All right, and we'll try from this location, third time's the charm. And we're going to be here with you today to discuss the NBA's challenge of moving and expanding into Europe. And we think this couldn't come at a more critical time. If you think about where our world stands today, we're in a little bit of some turmoil. There's a lot of people who are trying to pull away from each other instead of together. Isolationism has really taken hold in the US and abroad. But when we look back at the history of mankind, the best moments for us have been when we've come together. A man who knew this was President Woodrow Wilson, who famously said, "It is the power of the united moral forces of the world, and in the covenant of the League of Nations, the moral forces of the world are mobilized." This is why we would like to present with you the NBA's European League of Nations, a league that will have 8 founding cities in 6 countries. It is going to run from November to April. We are starting in November so that we do not conflict with the beginning of the Euro League in October, and so we can take advantage of some of the breaks in the football professional seasons in Europe. We are ending in April so that we do not conflict with the NBA postseason. They will play a total of 50 games, 34 regular season, which is consistent with the Basketball African League in the NBA. But what's going to be a little different is that we're going to try to integrate the All-Star game with Europe and America together. We've all seen the headlines of the past All-Star game for the NBA. Ratings are down 13%. They've been struggling with a format for a little bit. We think this could be an exciting new format to bring in and bring viewerships to both leagues in a cross manner. Now, as much as we want to talk about unity and bringing people together, it's going to be a consistent theme you hear from all 4 of us today. We also recognize that in European professional sports, rivalries are very important to them. They love a derby day, which is why we have tried to set up our teams to have a natural rivalry so that we can bring that element to them as well. To select these cities, we had 6 selection criteria. First and most important to us was making sure there was a good percentage of 18 to 35-year-olds in the city, as that's a key demographic for the NBA. We also want to make sure the population of the city was greater than 1 million people so that you would have a good reach. It was important to us that the nation the city was in had a strong GDP, as that could coincide with more disposable income to pay for tickets, jerseys, etc. We look to have indoor arena of greater than 12,000 seats. We think that'll look well on camera, especially if it can be full. And also, I'll touch on this more during our timeline, but we made sure that there was a women's sport team currently thriving in that city. And finally, we also just wanted to make sure there was strong tourism so that you could grab those tourists, especially Americans coming in who maybe you want to see a game for like home. To build out our teams, we have 3 different methods. The first is partnering with what we're calling professional sport partners. This is working with teams that are already established or sporting groups, such as the Fenway Sports Group from here in Boston, who owns Liverpool FC. They're already live in Liverpool. Next, and we'll talk on this a little more in SWAT, there are some EuroLeague teams who may be ready to move over and leave the EuroLeague. We have selected 2 of those that are not founding members. And finally, the third method is starting brand new teams. We're doing this in our 2 markets that are smaller, as we think that putting in an influx of capital from the NBA, 1, helps these markets. They will be most appreciative, and it's a good amount of positive PR for the NBA, quite frankly. Next, in looking how to build out these rosters, we have 3 methods for talent acquisition as well. First is looking at the national team rosters for these nations. We want to promote a sense of pride in the nations themselves to really support these teams. If you think about how excited the Europeans get for the Euro Cup, we want to kind of help them get to that level. Next, we're looking at players in the NBA who are European, who currently have a low minutes per game played, less than 13 minutes, because we think they maybe would want to come home, be a part of this founding league, and it increases the talent level of our league to something that the Euro League cannot sustain. Finally, we'd be looking at bringing former participants from Basketball Without Borders. This is FIBA and NBA's collective global development and community relations program. It has spawned some great stars to go to both the NBA and WNBA, but we maybe would be looking at the thousands of other participants who maybe didn't make it that far, but are still phenomenal basketball players. And this is just a more detailed example for each team, how we could build out these rosters. We will note for the teams that are already established, this would just be a way to enhance talent. You don't necessarily have to get rid of the current roster either. Taking a step back to more big picture, looking at the SWOT analysis for the NBA, even just moving into Europe, we think it's a strong play for them. Chief among strengths for the NBA is against the other American professional sports, they're better positioned moving into Europe. They have smaller teams, they require less infrastructure, and Europeans are already aware of the game of basketball. They understand it. You can't say the same for American football, where they are already angry that the names are the same as their favorite sport, and then they think the sport is violent, and it's a massive team. In terms of weaknesses, we'll talk about this a little bit in budgeting too, but the NBA doesn't have offices in 4 of the countries we're suggesting, so you'd have to build up that investment. For opportunities, there's several non-founding members of the Euro League, so they are not equity owners, they do not own the league, who are a little disgruntled that they are not owners of the league. They feel like second-class citizens in a sense. Those are teams to target to bring over, which is what we've done. And finally, for threats for any American corporation when you move abroad, you have to be concerned in the country you're doing business with. You could get some negative backlash. The NBA is currently seeing that with their Basketball Africa League with Rwanda, as they have received letters asking them to cut ties with the Rwandan government. In terms of KPIs, you'll kind of hear different points from my colleagues about what we're going to be really focused on for marketing and growth, but we have 5 categories: social media, sponsorship, attendance, retail, and viewership. We have different years in our timeline that we're really going to be digging into those different KPIs and some different percentage growth rates for each one, just to keep monitoring that the league is growing. And finally, the 5-year timeline that we have kind of established for some key milestones for us. Of course, it starts with the launch of the league, which we were saying could be in November 2026. Year 2 is the launch of the Youth Development Academy. Before year 3, we would start the process, if we're doing well, for expansion business bidding teams, and before year 4, announce those teams. Year 3 is when we start digging into some of our deep KPIs, and year 4 is when we're going to really open up negotiations for our broadcast and sponsorship deals. These could be renewals or bringing on a new partners that maybe are American corporations who feel more comfortable seeing the product of the league. And a big one for us in year 5 is that we want to start the Women's Euro League of Nations. Women's sports is growing so well in America, and we just want to spread that growth globally, and we think we could even partner with the WNBA to do that. And now I'm going to hand it over to Pablo to talk about the cage analysis.
Thank you so much, Nina. As an immigrant in this country, I can address that the best way of going into our cities, our countries, is understanding these cultures. That's what we try to do with this cage analysis. I'm not going to address each of these points, but as you can see, the most important for us is understand the multicultural cities that we're addressing. The case of Milan, Berlin, Juventus, Lisbon, for example. But not only understanding the difference in religion, for example, also understanding their ways of transportations, how they work those hours, for example. All of these cities, the ones that we see here, can you please go, Naya? And also these ones are major cities that has trams that are really important in Europe, subway, big subway connections, taxis as well, of course, Uber and different kinds of arenas. Also, we have London Lions, for example, in terms of cultural basketball, OG, not OJN, you know, we used to play there before getting drafted by the NBA. Go, Nina. In terms of initial league and team sponsors, we're going to work with the global partners of the NBA. In this case, Ticketmaster, Gatorade, Nike, Emirates, Mitchell Ultra, but we're also trying to get the NBA and FIBA closer as well, with Molten, 1xBet, a very important sporting betting site. But for our smaller markets, as Lisbon, Sevilla, for example, we're going to work with NOS, Accessor, small for comparison of these markets, companies that are also going to connect this city with the league as well. In terms of Louis Vuitton, for example, Armani is one of the main sponsors for EuroLeague team, so we're going to push that sponsorship. Thanks. In terms of streaming platform, one of our key criteria for our age group between 18 and 35 years old is the DAZN, European Distribution, FIBA's official streaming partner. As well, for international distribution, we're going to utilize ESPN+, our previous NBA partner as well, and also for broadcasting on local networks, UK, France, Italy, Spain, the cities we're going to address is going to have each own local TV broadcaster. Thank you so much. Go, Jeff.
Thank you, Pablo. So here we have our Passing of the Ball event. This is our inaugural event that will happen 100 days prior to our first game that we will touch on in a bit. This event will happen July 25th, 2026. And you might be wondering, why does the name The Passing of the Ball sound so familiar? So we incorporated a framework from the Olympics, the passing of the torch. And we really wanted to encompass what the Olympics stands for, what they embody, and that is friendship, that is bringing people together from different cultures, different avenues of life, and celebrating many, many differences. And so another part that the Olympics does is, of course, the passing of the torch video. And in our presentation, we have the passing of the ball. So how this will work for our video, it will start with an NBA player and an ELM player, and they will be, in each of our route, there will be one historical framework in each of our cities. So we'll start in Lisbon. And as we go down the list, we'll stop in Berlin. And this is the Brandenburg Gate historical landmark. And this landmark is important because it really signifies unity and peace. And if you take one thing away from our presentation, let that be the bringing together of people. Sport is huge, but the community is so much bigger, and this is a way to bring so many people together. We'll, of course, travel to the Eiffel Tower before going to the Anfield Stadium in Liverpool, home of the Liverpool FC, because bringing together the football and basketball culture is so important in Europe. And then lastly, we'll stop in London, and as we pass Big Ben, we'll stop at the NBA office. And to end our video, it will be the NBA player passing it to the ELN player with a new ELN branded basketball that will be played in our first game. So the festival, the music festival, we'll start with Nemo. He is the 2024 Eurovision champion. And because sports are important, but music is also another way to bring people together. Next, we have Ed Sheeran. You know him, you love him, our Englishman who's an avid sports fan. Finally, our headliner, Dua Lipa. Not only is she born and raised from London, she's also an avid and very passionate sports fan. This will be happening in Hyde Park. The capacity is 65,000 people. However, we are expecting more along the lines of 35,000 because our ticket is $80. We'll have food from various cuisines, such as seafood, various tapas, and of course, London's fish and chips, as well as our drink concession, Michelob, which is the NBA's official sponsor. So simultaneously, while this is happening, we will have our fan festival that will be happening in each city. So what will happen is that there will be a pop-up fan festival to celebrate the NBA's expansion into Europe. This is such an incredible event to really share this experience together, people from various walks of life coming together. So this fan festival will happen either at or near a basketball stadium. So they'll have the opportunity for 3x3 basketball games, dunk competitions. Also, there'll be photo opportunities. And if you use the hashtag ELM, you have the opportunity to show up on our mobile app or our social medias that we will touch on in a bit. And of course, the beginning of a new era, the tip-off game. This will happen between the London Lions and the Paris basketball team on November 2nd, 2026. This will happen in the Accor Stadium. We'll bring in influencers that we will touch on in a bit, and of course, Dirk and Tony Parker, our NBA All-Stars. So quickly going through the social media calendar, this will be 12 months. Of course, we touched on the inaugural event, the passing of the ball. However, our promotion does not stop there. We'll have hype videos revealing our new logos, our new key players, and then of course, having our first game in November. And the next key event is the NBA versus ELN All-Star game that will be happening in the US. And then another key event is the playoffs and the championship game in April. But our promotions don't stop there. This will be continue on all year round. And passing the baton to Juan.
Thank you, Jet. So going to digital media strategies, we focused on 6 different apps and the most famous ones in Europe. So we have the ELN app, that's one the most general is. That one has everything about rosters, everything about games, everything about schedules. That's like what the league's about. Then we have YouTube, that's where a little bit more of the narrative is gonna be told. Star player narratives, game highlights. Moving on into TikTok, where we're focusing more on the hype, creating that hype for the games, getting people excited. And then kind of hammering down as well with the Reels and Instagram. Instagram's the big meat of our social media because that's the most used platform in Europe. So there we're gonna have, again, game recaps, a couple of highlights, a little bit of it all. Twitch is gonna be used because it's very popular in Europe. And the unique thing of it is we're gonna stream pre and post events, as well as try to live stream during the games, more of the fan reactions as well as the celebrities that we're gonna bring in. And finally, we have X, and that's gonna be more of alerts, trying to see when the game tips off, what the result of games were, even immediate news releases. And slide, please. And then we're gonna have team digital media strategies. We focus on only the 3 main ones, being X, TikTok, and Instagram. And each team has a individual way of tackling it. Why? Because there's some teams that already have teams established, like basketball ones, that being Berlin, Paris, and even London. And then there's some that already have a base, because we're pairing up with a team like Liverpool, Milan, and Juventus. You can do slide, which we can also use that partnership with them to promote the type of games and get them to be fans of our basketball teams as well. Finally, we have Sevilla and Lisbon. These are unique challenges because we don't have teams established over there, and usually they have local rivalries. However, we're going to focus on the history, the traditions of those two very social cultures to try to bring them together and support the team that they're very proud of. Slide, please. These are going to be 3 slides of different influencers, so you can click through them as I talk. But basically, we have 3 for each city of different magnitudes. Some can range all the way up from Christian Pulisic, all the way down to very local ones that have few thousand instead of million of fans. We focus on the social media presence being year-long and also being throughout different platforms. So we have from Twitchers to Instagram users to TikTok. And yeah, they're going to have different leverages depending on what their main social media is and what their status as celebrity is. Slide, please. And finally, we're going to hit the tech integrations. So the ARs, VRs are going to focus on tours, scavenger hunts, get to know the cities, get to know the players, get to know the brand itself, and also get to know the stadiums. And finally, we have the video game, which we're trying to incorporate with 2K26, and that is to get the licenses going, get the ball rolling, and get that young people excited about it. And now I'm going to pass it back to Nina.
Thanks so much, Juan. And so now we've talked about a lot of great initiatives, a lot of things we want to do, and I'm sure you're wondering, how are we affording all of this? So first, we're talking out that we have the initial funding of $30 million from the NBA. Then we look at the different forms of revenue we think could come in even in the first year. This is our first year budget, and there will be adjustments made year over year, and certain items will go away. We've made this very friendly to the teams on purpose. We want to help them succeed from the start. So we're bringing back a lower percentage of local broadcasts than maybe we would normally see from the NBA, but that's to help the teams, and we'll adjust that percentage going forward. We also want to note for our sponsorships, we are currently partnering with a lot of the NBA and FIBA Global's partnerships, so they're paying more continuation or expansion fees, not for fully new deals. This is the expense breakdown of the launch events that Jet was discussing. We understand that these events are currently operating in the red, but you really want to have an event that gets the attention of the 18 to 35-year-olds, which is why we think it's worth it to pay for Dua Lipa and Ed Sheeran. The influencer marketing fees relate more to what Juan was just discussing. We will note we used an average to calculate the amount per influencer. It's going to depend on the person, but then we also have our appearance fees for NBA All-Stars. We have a bucket just set for league setup expenses. This is just for things that are going to come from the capital needed to launch a league. You may have to buy some players out of their contracts. You'll have facility rental fees, things of that nature. Technology relates to all that Juan was just discussing. I noted that we're going to be starting new offices in 4 countries. That requires offices, personnel, and of course, we need to have a new commissioner that will report to the great Adam Silver. And then finally, we have just a group of funds for things that we know are going to just come up in the first year. You have teams that maybe aren't going to be used to budgeting for themselves. We have a backstop for them. We also know there could be potential litigation from the EuroLeague, so for encroaching on their territory or just other lawsuits, so we have that incorporated as well. We thank you guys so much for your attention today, and we, of course, recognize that moving into Europe for the NBA is going to help the bottom line and increase the brand globally. We hope from our presentation you see how it really can help bring the world together in a time that we all kind of need it. Thank you so much, and we'll take your questions.
All right. Great job, you guys. Judges, any immediate questions? Hunter.
Yeah, very well done on the budget analysis there. Question on that. Was that budget analysis done for the league level or the local team side? Is the local team side included in that?
This is more just for the league level. This is not a per budget for each of the teams. We've just included things as the league that we think we could be helping the teams for. But of course, we understand that kind of as a league, you may have to help show the teams what they could have to pay. We did include some lines to help the teams with paying player salaries because we know that could be difficult from the start.
And to build on that, I noticed you had a break even there at the end of year 1. For an actual local team, did you do any analysis on how long it would take them to be profitable and sustainable themselves?
We did some high-level analysis quickly. We also just know from some of our own experiences and studies, it's going to take a few years, especially for some of those smaller market teams. So those are the teams why we built in some backstops to the budget of millions of dollars to be helping teams or just potential things we see could come in the future. It's more for those markets. We would think that a Paris or a Milan or a London is going to become more profitable faster than those smaller markets.
Great job. You talk about talent acquisition. Did a nice job identifying talent pools. What about the process itself? Looking at a drafting process, roster size. I mean, everybody looks forward to draft day. Is that something that you want to incorporate as part of your inaugural launch?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We actually had that question come up with the MBA expert. And he said that they're going to kind of play by ear, but we suggested that since Europe is more of an academy-based thing and kind of players rise up, it's going to end up being more so like that rather than a draft.
Great job on your storytelling and really the mission of bringing folks together there. I'm also very curious, though, it's a fine line, right? This is also competition and the spirit of competition. So how do you tell that story, get others rallied around, but also fire up your fan base for great basketball that they hope to see?
Thank you.
Or Jet, you want Jet?
So
You're welcome.
thank you. Thank you. So yeah, a way to fire it up is really to bringing the music element. That is a way that I think everyone in this room can agree that is one thing that can bring us together besides sport, and that's something that can pump us up as well. Did you want to say something?
And just speaking to the competitive nature of trying to make sure this is a sport league and people want to win, that is why we put in the kind of rivalries, and we plan to have weekends that are kind of like college football here, or for any European soccer fans, Milan, or Juan and I are big Milan fans, so we like to watch the Milan derby, so having weekends for those. But also, even though we're promoting this unity model, we all know that the Olympics is to bring people together, and that is a huge tenet of the Olympics. But I don't think anyone here would say that we're not ashamed when the U.S. wins the gold medal count.
Great job. And then my last question for you is looking at your revenue piece. I also had a question following up there. But I wanted to ask, because you all had the pop-up shops in each city, and I wanted to know if there was any revenue opportunity or lift that you all expected there, because I think some of your activities are great, but wondering if they connect back to any RIs that you imagine for the league overall, since that's how your budget was projected.
Okay, I think I'll take that one too. So I think we didn't fully put we put ticket revenues in from our fan festival events. And like I said, we tried to make this budget a little friendly towards the teams. So some of those things, we may be giving some of that revenue back to the local teams in those markets for the first year, maybe two. And those are things